the sloppy Joe of Philly
Okay.
cheesesteaks.
We're playing Horizon Zero Dawn, and she's like, "What is this about?" Going back to the burger part. Hey everybody, welcome to Bread and Burgers. We're actually starting something different this time. We are calling this Random Pickles. It's a kind of a mini series where either myself or Jonas throws out a topic, gives a little bit of detail and background, and then we just kind of riff and see where it gets us. Don't worry, it's going to be only about 15 to 20 minutes each instead of the whole hour. So, see what you like. See if you think that what we talk about makes sense or have merit, and then just be in a conversation with us. So Jonas, how are you doing?
Doing all right. Just kind of getting used to being in quarantine, and now officially Massachusetts is coming out of quarantine, so having to figure out how to get used to that as well. What's the new normal going to look like? What's it going to entail? But all in all, things going pretty well. How about you?
Yeah, same thing. I think we are. California has multiple phases, and the county that I'm in is like in phase 2A or something. I'm losing count. It's hard to understand. Like, okay, some counties are open, some counties are not. But all in all, I can't wait to get started and go out and sit down at a burger restaurant, which there's a reason why I say that, because we're actually going to segue real quick into today's topic. And now Jonas doesn't know about this. We actually didn't talk about this before, so I'm like dropping this on him right now. Today, what we are talking about in Random Pickles is why the burger. Why is the burger so popular? So if you think about it, the hamburger is the pinnacle kind of American food. You think about American food, you think about funny enough, hamburgers and French fries, but freedom fries. Yeah, no, but I mean, if you think about it, like anywhere you go, right, in the world, if you think about, oh, I want some American food, it's probably gonna be either steak or French fries, or burgers. So why do you think that is?
I think there's a lot of different reasons. Part of it we have to acknowledge is that burgers being the kind of face of American food, I think in part is like a commoditization.
Okay.
Most of the major kind of burger franchises come from America. McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and those are pretty ubiquitous with hamburgers, right? Like, sure, every area or locale kind of has its local take on it, but when most people think burgers, right, they probably associate it with McDonald's. You see the Golden Arches, you think burgers, right?
Okay.
And even if you don't go to McDonald's for burgers, as soon as you see that M, you kind of know, like, I could get a hamburger there, right? Like, I that is one thing that I know is on the menu, and that's sort of been the the kind of poster child of Americana, commercial Americana, for better or worse.
So your premise then is saying that because of fast food restaurants going from from America into the other countries, kind of this globalization pattern happening, if you will, this
Mm-hmm.
phenomenon happening. That's how burgers became to be so popular, all around the world. Okay, I think that makes sense. It's interesting if you think about it that for example, like the consumption of potatoes, or a lot of potatoes come from immigrants from Ireland and whatnot. Your typical, again, from America, your typical Italian food also came from the immigration of Italians into America, settling, and either A, they continue their Italian tradition, or B, find variants or ways to cook what they know at home, and then kind of
Hmm.
slowly transform into this Italian American cuisine.
Yeah.
So that's one idea of how foods get transferred from one region of the world into the next. But you're saying that burgers is because of McDonald's.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, I think burgers being the poster child of American food, right? When we think American food, um, burgers are kind of that poster child in that regards. I think how did burgers come about and how they stayed around is not something I've done an extensive amount of research into, but right, like the idea of a burger in part is also like why the fast food is very ubiquitous with burgers is because a burger to a greater or lesser extent is sort of a food of convenience.
Okay.
You need no utensils to eat it, and the idea is that you can hold a whole meal in your hand, right? Like it's similar to like a sandwich,
Mm-hmm.
which also has kind of European roots. Um, but the difference is that the evolution of like a sandwich into a burger, like it feels it even if it isn't necessarily the case, the whole concept of like that handheld burger feels very like American, right? Um, we could argue that certainly our modern conception of pizza being, the crust, tomato sauce, cheese, and toppings
Mm-hmm.
is actually much more American than it is Italian.
Yeah, that's true.
But we still associate it. We still somehow have that association with kind of that. We associate it with Italy, and so I think there's some regards where burgers are kind of truly like American in that sense, but also I think it sticks around just because it sort of captures a couple of different kind of I think either comforting or kind of nostalgia points where that a lot of people kind of tap into.
Okay. Well, honestly, I would, I think it makes sense. I would like to go a different angle though, because I
Hmm.
think the popularity of burgers kind of around the world, on the one hand, it is convenience, right?
Hmm.
It's simple. If you think about a burger, it's easy to imagine, what it is. Now, if you think about a specific dish, like a famous dish like let's see, like Spatzel or Jägerschnitzel or something. Like it's hard to conceptualize. Okay, so really, what is it, right? But if you think about a burger and into extension a hot dog, it's just easy to conceptualize that it's a bun, patty, bun, and additional things that make up the experience of the burger.
Hmm.
But you just have that mental image very easily. So I think it kind of becomes this proto food group, if you will. Like, oh, steak is one group. Roast chicken or chicken is a group. Burger seems to be just another group of simple foods.
Yeah, well, I think it's a little more universal in the sense that it's defined enough that when you say burger, everyone kind of comes up with the same picture, right? Sure, some people prefer sort of local variants, right? We talked a little bit about Moss Burger and their rice buns,
Mm-hmm.
or places in like India or other regional locales that might have things that look different than slightly different, but in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you say hamburger to the average person, they people who know what it is um, will kind of all congregate on a similar picture. And it's not to say that like this is the best burger, right? But this is just kind of the, as you said, like the proto food group. Like this is just the image. Like when you say burger, everyone has the same kind of context, as opposed to something like steak, right? Where steak, a lot of people might define it as just like a hunk of beef. But when you say like a slab of beef to an American like steak, they think one thing, and if you say the same thing to someone in Asia, I think that person might think of something kind of different. right?
Yeah.
Is it marinated? You dry age it, right? Ask someone in Europe, that sort of thing. And then as you get more specific in dishes, especially in American cuisine, you'll find that they're actually pretty much just kind of Americanized versions of some other typically European cuisine, which means that when you say it, there is like pizza, for example. Like you actually reference something different, right? Like when I say pizza, I think of something very different than if I were to go to you were to go to Rome and say pizza to someone over there.
Yeah, you know, and speaking of regional variances, and again, not the outliers like, you know, Moss Burger or you know, a local moco or Hawaiian style burger or something like that. But I mean, like just going somewhere and asking for a hamburger. You know, I think at least for my experience going to Asia, you know what you're gonna get, you know, versus what you're saying about steak. Yeah, it's actually quite different because if I think about steak here, you know, going to a steakhouse or something, I immediately think that, okay, you know, it's like, you know, 1.5 inch, 2 inch thick, you know, the it's grilled or at least somewhat charred, if you will, served with sides, you know, that kind of steakhouse experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you go to Asia, you know, in Hong Kong, you go and order from a not a no, a true Western you know, restaurant, but you know, more of a hybrid or a fusion type restaurant, tea houses as we call them, tea houses. So it's actually about a maybe a half inch, a quarter inch thick, pretty much all well done for the most part. But then there's like, you know, a lather of sauce, you know, on top of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's, if you say steak to someone, you know, in Hong Kong, it's actually different
Mm-hmm.
than steak here.
Mm-hmm.
But burgers, almost the same, you know, I would say.
Yeah, and I think there's this universal sort of acknowledgement of that, right? Even if you go to a Chinese restaurant and you see something on there called like a Chinese burger, there is sort of more of an acknowledgement that like this is the closest we can come up with, as opposed to like this is really a like what we think a hamburger is.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, right, like if you order like steak, right, like you go to a Chinese restaurant and you see steak on the menu in English and you don't know what the Chinese is saying, right? It is very conceivable that you'll come up with something completely different, and that
Yeah.
really is their kind of psychological conception of like this is a steak. I mean, what else were you asking for?
Yeah, like I remember back in college when I worked at a you know, the art department, you know, as a tech, you know, IT, you know, tech person, and the two supervisors that I was working with, actually they were vegetarian,
Mm-hmm.
and they go to trips abroad all the time, and they actually went to China and then want to say, hey, do you have any vegetarian dishes? And they say, oh yeah, we do. And then so they served up a vegetarian dish, which was like duck blood sausage.
Mm-hmm.
Because and then they're like, no, this is not vegetarian, and it's hard to conceptualize for them because in as at least in parts of China or parts of, you know, Asia, vegetarian is actually translated as non-meat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's non-meat, then technically it's vegetarian, but no, not plant-based, right? I mean, there's always that misconception of what a vegetarian dish is. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of goes in, you know, a lot analogous to what you were saying, that yeah, if you talk about steak, it could be completely different, but if you talk about burgers, generally is the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Like, do you think that the hamburger is, you know, as popular, you know, outside of the United States as it is here, or what's your take on that?
I don't think it's as popular as the within the U.S., right? Like in terms of like I don't think people in Asia are eating as many hamburgers as people in the U.S. But and I'm sure I can try to find statistics to back that up, right? And I'm sure they would. But I think they're popular in the sense of like do people outside of the U.S. like and want hamburgers? Yeah, I think just even by the by the kind of the development of these regional variants, we see like hamburgers are pretty popular. Like people like hey, we want to do a riff on hamburgers so more people eat hamburgers, right? Like, and maybe you're not used to wheat bread and, you know, kind of grilled beef, so we're going to do, rice and, saucy beef.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too, because if you think about it, like I'm not saying that there isn't any like local variant steakhouses or local variant um, yeah, other type of cuisines, but ultimately something like Moss Burger, where well, we take this burger, this concept of a burger, and then we're gonna bring an Asian kind of spin to it, and then it becomes a chain, actually a international chain. Like isn't that crazy that
Yeah,
it's based on a burger. It's hard to create this steakhouse and then spin it as something else, and then have an international chain. I don't know, it's just, I think it's kind of unique to the burger experience, if you will.
definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys think about, for our audience out there, what why the burger, why do you think the burger is so popular? Let us know in the comments down below. Join our conversation. Maybe we're just kind of like throwing random ideas and seeing what stick on the wall, but maybe you're like, no, 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 there's a reason why the burger is so popular, outside of the United States. Let us know. We would like to know. And just maybe we'll read it out next time in a different episode.
Yeah, your answer even could be like you're just wrong and burgers aren't popular outside of the United
That's
States.
probably that's
Well,
probably
let
what
us
it is.
know.
Yeah, let us know, and also don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell icon. And thank you for everybody who is listening and downloading our podcast. We're seeing that, and we hope to hear you in the next conversation.
Definitely. See
See
you
ya.
around.